Oh, man. You see all that nonsense going on?
While you're sweating, dripping.
Yeah, that's why the AC's not on there because they're outside
Mr. Ballard, you want to lead us in the pledge, please?
All righty, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
Of the United
States of
States
America,
of America,
to the republic,
and to the
for
republic
which it stands,
for which it
one
stands,
nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
liberty and
with
justice
liberty
for
and
all.
justice for all.
All right, so for the Lorain board, I need to call this board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ballard,
Here.
Ms. Nazario. Here. Ms. Johnson. Mr. Sturgill
Here.
and Mr. Williams.
Here.
And Tia, I'm sure you saw Ms. Johnson is here. I'm not sure if she unmuted her mic. Okay,
Here.
thank you.
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
All right, let me call the Lorain ADC to order, please. Roll call.
Mr. Coffin,
Present.
Mrs. O'Brien,
Here.
Mr. Rivera,
Here.
Dr. Sampson.
Here. Can I get a quick motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Valeska's logging in now, so if we might hold off for a
Okay.
couple minutes. If that's
You got
okay, everybody. Thank you.
So do you think the board has to want to do their agenda items right now while she's logging in?
I think we're going to wait for Waleska, Dr. Sampson, because she's going to be the translator.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Guys, nothing clear. Thank you.
Hello there, Chief Rivera. How are you, sir?
Mark, how are you, buddy?
Good to see you, my friend. Good to see all you guys, but I haven't seen Chief in a long time, so don't take it personal.
Hey, so while we're waiting, this is Patty. The Stocker Foundation, we had our board meeting over the weekend and we invited Lorain City Schools to be one of our presenters. And Michael Scott graciously came and hung in there with us for the whole morning through lunch. And I just would like to acknowledge how fabulous his presentation was. How much it helped the Stocker Foundation with our work, and that we just really are appreciative and grateful to have had him with us. So thank you, Michael, a lot for that.
Thank you, Patty, for the opportunity. It was a fascinating learning experience. Although you brought us there to speak on what we're doing relative to hiring and retention and equity, listening to the Urban League, hearing from Tony Richardson, speaking with the family, 4 generations of soccer family working to promote equity in our county is just fascinating. So thank you for organizing that and having us have a seat at the table.
We really appreciated it. So we were happy, again, I think I said to Michael, we were so happy to have Lorain back with us, you know, at the meeting and participating with Elyria. So it was good, really good.
Thank you. I'll start to roll through our agenda. Mrs. Sampson, if that's okay. Number 4, we have the recognition of visitors, seeing none. First hearing of the public, seeing none. I need a motion to approve the minutes from our June 18th special meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
and Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving down, number 7, old business. Hearing none. First report of our treasurer.
I have items 8.01 through 8.05 for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario,
Yes.
and Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Did we go all the way through 04, Tia?
Yes, through 05.
All right, very good. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Is that it?
That's it for me.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from our CEO. Any recommendations of the CEO?
Thank you, Mr. President, I guess first I'd like to ask Michael Scott to give us an update on our strategic plan, as always. And as he mentioned earlier, and I apologize, on vacation last week, so I'm glad that Michael represented us so well and definitely would have done a much better job than I. But again, I just, Patty, to kind of throw it back at you, he was talking about in our administrative meeting this morning, how impressed he was with not just the venue, but the people. He was talking about 4 generations of Stockers and was just very impressed with your board. So I want to thank you for your consistent support from that angle as well. But Michael, if you could give us an update on our strategic plan, and if you could also follow that up with, there's a dress code change from our typical that we've done over the years. And if you can kind of speak a little bit to the process and the product there. And for everybody out there, please know that specific information will be out soon so people can do their back to school shopping. But we try to be respectful of what we've heard from the community and what we witnessed over the course of the past year. Michael?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Graham. So I'll begin with where you just left off, and that is with the student dress code. And I'll make this brief but concise. One of the things that we've had for many, many years that caused shopping concerns every year was khakis and polos. That was a big part of our dress code policy for years. Coming out of well, at the beginning of the year, before we knew how the COVID year was going to roll out, we made a decision with the backing of the board to loosen that policy for the school year relative to khakis and polos. And that's what we did. And we came back into our hybrid, our students dressed, I'm gonna call it in a relaxed manner, but not in the khaki and polo manner. And after some vetting, we decided to continue with that. So for our families, please, and like Dr. Graham said, there will be some details that come out, but the idea is that when we buy our clothing, that we can buy it for school, out of school, and be responsible in that manner. If you still want to wear the khakis and polos, please do so. The support for students will still be there. So the agencies that we've worked with in the past to help support students that were in need, they will still be support. But we wanted to make sure that we maintained a policy that promotes safety and also minimize bias. I was one of the individuals that for many years was enforcing the dress code policy from an administrative standpoint, either as a principal or an assistant principal. And when you break down the demographics, there was a large contingency of females being identified and minority males. So the idea in having our dress code be in the manner that it is we respect our families to make responsible decisions relative to what their students wear. We want our staff to engage with our students in a positive manner. There was a lot of interactions around dress code for many, many years. So putting all that together, I think we've crafted something that still maintains safety, but also promotes individualism, like I said, while reducing as much bias as possible. So that's an update on the dress code.
If I could just follow up real quick, and I want to thank Michael for his leadership on this, and anyone who's been involved in schools knows that dealing with dress code policy is not a lot of fun. But Michael led us in that charge. And I just want to echo a couple of points that he made. Our goal was to be respectful to the families and children we serve. And we found that our practices weren't necessarily allowing for that. So because we were constantly challenging people's outfits, it became much more the relationship between administrator and teacher and student wasn't as healthy as we think it can be. When the first thing you do is challenge things people wear. We trust our families to make the right decisions, again, and we believe that the culture and climate is huge and directly related to attendance. So we're optimistic that as we begin to demonstrate a different level of respect for people and to remove some more barriers to coming to school and to make school a more comfortable place to be, that not only will students attend more often, but also be more productive when people are here. So a lot of research and support that went into the decisions that were made. And again, I just want to thank the team for following up and our board for their support in the process.
I will continue on with the strategic plan update. For those of you that have been in meetings with me throughout this year, know that oftentimes I try to make fun of my colleague, Ross, for his process. However, I won't do that today, but what I will say is that I'm going to give a spoken overview versus walking you through each step and going to the project management board. However, it still does exist. So there's some things I want to highlight from our work this summer. One, and I'm looking, I don't see Barb on the screen. Barb Bowen in our district, who's just phenomenal, has led our district leadership team and administrators and some of our support staff, administrative assistants, through a book study. We're in the early stages called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. That will help support not only that action step, but also our culture survey. So we do plan on having intermittent culture benchmark checkpoints over the course of next school year. So think of it as a later fall, a mid-year, and maybe early spring to gauge, how the perception of our culture is in our district. Looking at that through the lens of staff, students, and families. So going through this book study has been an important part in laying those foundations from which we will gauge and measure ourselves. That's an update from that group. Patty, thank you for setting me up to speak with soccer again. One of our other action steps, HC1, is around creating a sustainable plan for the hiring and retention of a staff that begins to mirror our student demographics. So they have been working hard at reviewing and analyzing process and procedures and policy. And we've had obviously some interviews that have already taken place. So putting those things into practice. One thing that I do want to highlight from that is the idea that after we go through an interview process, that we are reviewing that process. What type of questions did we ask as we create our district non-negotiables, equity non-negotiables? Are those being applied throughout the interview process? So that group is working very hard and setting the stage for a bright future, and not only how we recruit and interview, but then that retains. So it's tied into that healthy culture piece. It's one thing to get good people in our doors. It's another thing to keep them. So we will definitely continue that work. I will jump to our PBIS team because we're talking about healthy culture. They've met two or three times, maybe even more. They've had a training from a district standpoint. We did not have a district PBIS team. We do have one now. They were beneficial this year in helping us get our practices around kindness, being kind to self, being kind to others, and being kind to the environment. It was so critical during that COVID time that we had procedures around that. That is going to continue into next school year. So they're working on handbooks from a district standpoint that can then filter down into the building level, making sure that our guidance and support for buildings as they enhance their culture is there. So they've been working on that. Like I said, they just came out of a training a week or two ago with the state support team. So really unifying our practices there. That's student support 4 and 5. Student support 9, when we start talking about high school graduation and post-secondary success, one of the action steps in our plan is to begin to track those transitions. We have a responsibility of doing so, but our team has began to meet to talk about the nuts and bolts behind that too, from a systems and an organizational standpoint, making sure that we have the right pieces, the right people in place to grab that work. So Dr. Graham, I don't know if you want to come in and if you wanted to say anything about graduation pieces there, or you want to say that for later. But this work on what we do with beginning, well, as early as 9th grade, but really honing in on that junior year, senior year, and then that 13th year where our students leave us, and we want to make sure that they're in good spots. We are setting up to the ability to do that. And meanwhile, we are doing some things to help our current students recover credits. We are following up with those seniors that did not get to cross the stage to make sure that they, for summer graduates that are available, we're making sure that we have a village around those works.
Right, and Michael, if I could add a little bit to that. This is Aretha. So one of the things that I'm really proud about the SS9 team is that we've added some new folks to the team, and that's some recent graduates. And in our last meeting last week, what powerful testimonies and input, testimony in terms of their experiences with Lorain City Schools, which they feel left them totally prepared to graduate. But they also said, I have some friends that would have said this, and they needed this, and they needed that, and they didn't have as great of experience, and they're there to help us kind of look at our part in that, and we're there to listen to them, as well as they've kind of gone on to do some amazing things. So this kind of 13th year, as we'd like to call it, in support of our students. The two, Lindsay Williams is one of them, and Sly, I don't remember Sly's last name. Just very worthy, yes, very valuable in terms of just articulating where we are, what we've done, and some of the needs of some of their friends that graduated. So I'm really excited about the steps that the team is going to take to ensure that our kids graduate college and or career ready.
All right.
Thank you, Aretha.
And again, I just want to say what a phenomenal, although I don't like the name because kindergarten, there is 13 years, so we call it year 13 is misleading. But for us, and I appreciate the fact that our team jumped all over the fact that our responsibility isn't just to get them to graduation, we have responsibility beyond that. And it's to make sure that they have what they need to be successful. So I just want to applaud our team for their leadership and their caring and their understanding of what our role really is.
Okay. A couple more updates, and then I'll call it close on the update side of things. Teaching and learning, there's going to be 2 updates from there. Aretha, since you're on the roll right now, I'd love to invite you in to talk about TL4 and some of that work around, just identifying our elements of our comprehensive curriculum and the work that you guys have been doing this summer, because you've been busy in a few meetings as well.
Yeah, sure. So excited that we're kind of finally taking a very broad topic and narrowing it down to some of the action steps, important action steps that we feel we need to take to make sure that we understand what curriculum is in our district. And so two of the steps that we've come to is that we need to have a common vocabulary around that, because we said when we asked the question, what curriculum are you using? What curriculum are you teaching? The answers vary because people just have different definitions of what that is. Some people think it's the standards. Some people think it's the resource. Some people think it's how they teach in a classroom. So kind of defining what that looks like for Lorain City Schools, as well as determining that we need a comprehensive curriculum audit. So that means pretty much like, what do we have and to what extent do we have it? And then what don't we have? And what we found in our initial findings is that we have a lot of different stuff everywhere. So from online to file cabinets to stuff that people can identify that was created last year to things that are being taught from 2012. So we've found that we have a vast amount of information out there, but what we also want to do is honor the work that has been done. So we're really focusing on not starting completely over, but taking some of the work that we know teachers have set in on teams, and they have really sat down and figured out what they feel they need to be successful in terms of instruction, in terms of resources, in terms of technology, in terms of assessment, diagnostics. So what do we have that's good, and how can we build upon that? So yeah, so we're our team, and we expanded that team also to include more levels. So we wanted to make sure that we had someone from elementary, someone from middle, someone from high, because they can speak to a lot of different things. We have an EL person, we have a special education person, because we want to make sure that when we say comprehensive, that we're not forgetting anything, that we want to make sure that we're being very, very thorough in terms of what teaching and learning looks like in Lorain City Schools, from the standards, teaching the standards, to how we assess the standards. We've also determined that we're on two different tracks. So we have the here and now, which is what our CAS team is working on in terms of prioritizing standards and leveling them. And then we have the long term, which is the comprehensive audit, so that we can make sure that we're aligned in everything that we do.
Thank you. And our goal is sorry, as this work progresses, to continue with being transparent about it. We have a responsibility to promoting the great programs that we have in our district, but not just, being able to say the names of them, but to allow people to take a look under the hood and see what children are truly getting through these offerings. So that's the goal. And that does take some time and effort and work, but we've got the right people doing that work. Which also leads me in, lastly, our last update is the arts expansion that we are going to be spending a year's worth of talking about. How do we really promote arts programming pre-K through our entire system, pre-K through 12, and how do we expand it early and often? And that group is meeting. They're diving into the research. They're having conversation about what the models should look like. They've got some things planned on going to talk to some schools that are really doing it well, so that we can hear from those schools, and not just schools that look like us either. As a big part of their conversation that I got to sit in on, we want best practices, period. And we want to strive for those. I do want to also spotlight our approaches towards recovery learning and engagement as we enter into next school year. Our building principals, along with their leadership teams, are really talking about what after school programming looks like. And one leader in one of our campuses has took this idea of art expansion and has partnered with a community partner. And we are in the stages of working out a contract to provide our students at the elementary level and potentially middle school and high school with an opportunity to engage in the arts. So we're talking about dance, we're talking about theater and songwriting a couple days a week throughout the course of the school year. More details to come on that, but I want to tease that out a little bit because that's important work. Not only is that important work, but that's important for our community. We know that the arts and students that are involved in the arts and students that are with us after school, all of those students that are participating in these type of things do better and are more engaged in school. So we want to offer that for all. So that is a little bit of the strategic plan update. I apologize if you were looking forward to seeing the charts and seeing the actual steps and things of that nature, but I wanted to honor time, but then also give people a thorough update of what's going on, because there is a lot that is going on in our district right now.
And Michael, I appreciate that. And I guess one thing I just want to kind of bring some attention to, obviously during the course of last year, we reopened school 3 different times with COVID, making sure that our children and their families were safe, supported, fed, and obviously educated throughout the process. So as we got rolling on this part, I think what you saw during the strategic planning updates are things were very process driven, very intentional, and at some points pretty slow, right? It took us a while to make sure the process down. And it took us a while. We knew that we couldn't do anything without our district leadership team. So we had to come up with the process to make sure that was staffed properly. Then we'd select our DLT. And I think what you see now is we're just giving you highlights because there are so many moving parts and so many great things happening with depth. We don't have the time to give you updates on everything during board meetings or ADC meetings. So we'll work on making sure you get the information that you need. But just during that one piece, we talked about curriculum, PBIS, culture, climate, DLT, year 13. Again, I don't get to name everything, but it's probably year 14. The arts expansion. All these different pieces that we're talking about that are perfectly aligned with our strategic plan on the areas that we know that once we get good at them, that we will demonstrate the highest levels of student growth that we can. So again, we intentionally targeted these areas. So again, I just want to thank the folks on this screen for your support during the process, your trust in the beginning when things were clearly not moving as quickly as some folks wanted. But right now, if you take a look at our action step tree, I think you'll see that the branches are spreading out, and we got the right people in charge of each leaf. So I just want to thank you for that. Any questions before I move on to next steps? Okay, I would like the board to consider for approval items 3.01 to item 3.13, personnel matters.
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson, and Mr. Williams.
Yes.
I'd like the board to consider for approval items 4.01 to 4.20, operation matters.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario,
Yes.
Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson, and Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. That's it that I have this evening.
All right, thank you. Committee reports, knowing none. Second hearing of the public, there are none. Next board meeting will be on July 13th at 5 o'clock in the Media Center. We do not have an executive session scheduled for the board today. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Dr. Sampson. And before we go into your executive session, I will adjourn my meeting. So let me know when you're ready for me to do that.
Okay, we have one item on our agenda, and that is graduation updates. So Dr. Graham, if you could just walk us through what the graduation updates that you have and what we talked about in the last couple of weeks.
Thank you, Dr. Sampson. Right now, again, as folks know that maybe not everyone knows, you can actually go into the summer before it's considered this year's graduation rate. So we have a lot of students who are in credit recovery. And in a way, it was sad to see that many students because of I think the havoc that was COVID wreaked. But it's also exciting to know that students were taking their education seriously. We had 300 students sign up for summer school, credit recovery, to get caught back up again. Actually, 308 students. And up to this date, we have had 200 credits earned, which is absolutely amazing. So our updated numbers for graduation for the 5-year, which are the graduating class of 2020, we're up to 88%. And the graduating class of 2021, with I think 85 students still participating for the next week or so in credit recovery, is 76%.
All right, so we're going to be at about a 76% for the cohort for the class of 2021.
We have 85 more students going, so I'm optimistic that number will be higher than that.
Okay. All right. So with that said, one of the key questions that we also had was making sure that all of our high school students are on track and receive the amount of credits that they should receive per year, so that we don't have this backlog of credits that we're trying to get through credit recovery. So if you could explain to us, how's that looking from 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade students?
Right now, and again, no excuses, but COVID really wreaked havoc in our high school. Right now, we're behind. If you're looking at the 4-year graduating cohort for 2022, 23, and 24, it's 64%, 60%, and 53% respectively. So again, I think that some of the issues that we faced, obviously attendance was a major issue for us, but also, as we mentioned, we don't even meet 52% of our students until they arrive in high school. So these are strangers to us that we're still trying to get to know. Pat Coleman and his team put together plans that are very personalized in their approach to make sure we start to identify our students who are struggling actually as early as 8th grade, so we're ready for them in 9th grade. But they will have a personalized approach to make sure they are caught up and not waiting till the summer after the year they're expected to graduate. So the plans they're putting in place are not only spot on, but it's a very caring approach. So again, I want to applaud them.
So if I heard you correctly, currently 9th grade students who are going to be rising 10th grade, starting off 21 school year, we're looking at about 53%, just about half of those kids have the required credits to finish their freshman year. So they're on track. Half of our freshman kids do not have enough credit or did not earn enough credit, didn't pass enough classes the freshman year to qualify for those credits. And what's the total number of freshmen that we have in the building?
The number I have is 510.
510. So we're looking at about 250 kids, 245 kids who are not on track currently as freshmen. I have not seen a comprehensive plan yet. I'm sure the folks are still working because you're trying to graduate kids and get other kids caught up all at the same time. And I get it. And at the same time, you're closing down the school year and starting the school year at the same time, planning for next year. So maybe by our next meeting or so, or throughout the summer, we can receive some updates as to what's going to be the process to get half of the freshman class caught up. If they're in summer school or credit recovery, or will it be credit recovery throughout the year next year? What that process is going to look like. I don't want to put any pressure to commit to anything today. Same thing for sophomores and juniors.
Yeah, there's a series of plans, and we'll get into more detail at the next meeting if you like. But we have a short-term plan, and obviously a short-term plan, a shorter-term plan, and a very short-term plan for a student in high school. We're also talking about planning for this year, but implementing the following year is offering a lot of high school courses in 8th grade. So right now, obviously math is something that happens, but there's no reason why we can't do foreign language, obviously math, phys ed, health, a lot of the courses. And what that does is for our students who are advanced, it gives them the opportunity to take more advanced classes in high school. For our students who struggle, it gives them more opportunities to take courses that they struggle with. Algebra 1 is the most failed course in the nation. And sometimes students need additional supports. And sometimes those supports come in the form of recovery. And sometimes they come in the form of spreading things out, because it's the knowledge that's important, not necessarily whether or not you follow the structure that a typical student follows. So we will be very creative and very aggressive in making sure that our students have the opportunities they need to accomplish what they need to accomplish. But again, I can't stress enough, but getting to graduation and graduating isn't enough. We need to make sure that year after graduation and moving forward, that our students have the supports they need to be successful.
Okay. And absolutely. And Mr. Scott, I hope Ross can put that onto the strategic plan template with the checklists to see, hopefully we can get our current freshmen, or at least current class of 2025 at 100% by the time they get to their junior year for the classes that they need. So we need to make sure that there's a process in place for that, with steps that can be viewed publicly. And I'm sure there are some people out there who have great ideas on how to help with that too.
And it's not
we're not
class in 2022, 23, 24, 25. We'll make sure that each class, again, needs a very unique plan because they have unique needs. And as we go further down, we'll obviously have many, many more opportunities to make sure our students have what they need.
Excellent.
And
anything from the ADC? Oh, go ahead, Mr.
Well, I just wanted to chime in. Our principal is listening, and he says, we'll be ready to talk about the 5th block, which is extending that school day, helping students recover credits. So that's in the works. And then once again, just kind of tease. So there's some work from a building leadership team standpoint. Their building leadership team has been meeting, which is made up of a vast, diverse representation of the high school staff. And some of the things that are coming up are to support students during those critical 9th and 10th grade year, not only for next year, but looking a year in advance too, on some things that can really be put in place to make sure that every student has an advocate and every student is a part of a team. So we'll be ready to talk about that in more details as that work continues this summer.
And if I could chime in real quick, I talked to Ms. Davis this morning, and I'm working with the summer school program. And I know personally, I've had 25 kids that have recovered U.S. history and government credits so far with 4 days to go. And she said at this point, it looks like we have over 230 credits that have been recovered, and we still have 4 days to go. So we're feeling pretty good that we've recovered a lot of the credits with the team that we have working at the high school. The last 3 weeks will be a 4-week program. So we're pretty happy with at least the fact that we got some recovery of credits, and that is going to help some kids move into a much better situation heading into the fall.
Thanks for the update, Steve. Yeah.
Anything else regarding this credit situation and high school updates, Patty?
Well, I was just going to add that my question, but Jeff really started to talk about it, was what are we doing to think about what happens before high school in middle school and even beyond that. And so I'll look forward to hearing more about those plans as we progress. So, but I'm glad that y'all are thinking about that.
We know we can predict some of our students are going to struggle in high school as early as 5th, 6th, 7th grade, so or earlier. So we will have plans in place. And again, that's part of our strategic plan. We talk about the multi-tiered systems of support. So that's part of our RTI process.
Excellent. And then just, I just want to once again go ahead and commend you and your team for this effort. Typical schools don't talk about this stuff out in the open, out in public. Nobody wants to talk about, 50% of our kids are on track. And they sweep it under the rug until it's graduation time. Then it's a mad dash to the finish line. But you're taking it head on, you being proactive in that approach. And once again, we're going to let everybody see the warts and the wrinkles and deal with it as it is. So hats off to you. This is not meant to be an embarrassment, but it's more of a shining the light on the issues and then how to solve the issues, right? And I think that's good. Anything else from the ADC regarding the graduation updates? All right. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to executive session to consider the appointment, of employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, and compensation of public employees, and to discuss pending litigation. The commission may or may not take action upon coming out of executive session. Can I get a motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call vote?
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
and Dr. Sampson.
Yes. All right, so we're going to pause this Zoom and ADC and team's going to step out into a different Zoom for executive session, and then we shall return.
Thank you. And for the Lorain City School Board, I need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Sturgill,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson, Mr. Ballard,
Yes.
Ms. Nazario,
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Have a good day.
And for the Lorain City Schools people, there is nothing you need to stick around for. So enjoy your family.
Good night, you all.